William and Sarah are going to be interviewing you, so I'm going to turn my mic off and let you guys do it. It's nice to see you again, Lol. Thank you so much for doing this.
No, it's all great to see you too.
All right, Lol, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. You know,
right.
Once I finally got the technical difficulties sorted out.
Yeah, well, we're finally rolling. And in fact, you and I met, it's donkey's years really, but I met you in Los Angeles when you were touring with Presence.
Wow, that's a few years back now. That's probably almost 20 years ago. No,
yeah,
about 16. Yeah, it's been a bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's been some time. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're here to talk about the book, and would love if you can just lead us off with some of the inspiration behind it, you know, kind of what drove you to put it out, and what the reception has been so far.
You know, it's strange because I was listening to Randy just beforehand, and I loved when he was telling about, you know, somebody asked him, well, do you find it more difficult once you get clean and sober to create? And he told it exactly like it was, the truth. It's like, no, it's much easier. It's much easier. I mean, you know, you get to feel a bit uncomfortable at first, like you said, because you're not used to dealing with life, you know, that way. But once you do, you get, there's a lot of benefits. So I had always wanted to write, you know, in my time in The Cure, I've handled a lot of different writing aspects, things, you know, with lyrics and stuff. And I'd always been an avid reader. I'd always loved literature, always wanted to write. So one day about 4 or 5 years ago, my friend in New York, Rob, called me up and called my bluff and said, are you still thinking of writing a book? And I sort of went, yeah, sure, you know. And he went, okay, because my friend's coming to open up a new publishing company in Los Angeles, and you know, I'll get him to meet you. So I went, oh, okay. And that was actually Ben Schaefer. So I went for lunch with Ben, and I told him the idea I had for it, and he said, great, okay, let's get going. And so we did. And it's been the most wonderful experience I've had since The Cure, really, in lots of ways, because I've just spent, the book came out at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, different territories. I've been on the road with that ever since. I've done about 300 book events around the world. I just got back just before we all had to go into lockdown. I just got back from South America. I've been to Peru and Chile and Argentina, and it was absolutely the most wonderful experience to go and basically I go around the world meeting all the people that have supported The Cure for my whole life, you know, and that's been a great thing to do. And I would have actually been this weekend. I would have been over at the Hay Festival in England if you know, if the COVID virus hadn't swept the world instead. So, you know, it's been very good to do.
Loads of the questions that have come in have been from people in South America, actually. So I don't know if you're fresh in their mind or just have a fantastic audience.
Yeah, I've got to admit, you know, going down there, it's like Beatlemania again. I really didn't expect it. You know, we arrived, Margie, my assistant, and me, we arrived about midnight one night in Mexico City, and I thought, oh no, but you know, it's just we're going to go to a hotel, go to sleep, and there was like 100 people waiting at the airport at midnight for us. You know, it was like, it was very weird, but it was very good. They're lovely people.
Excellent. And it was, as a Cure fan, it was really interesting from myself to just kind of see where this book sort of connected and then picked up and went forward from the 10 Imaginary Years biography of The Cure. It kind of added a lot of depth and a lot of additional layers to it. And it was just an excellent read, I think, for any Cure fan. It's just a really rich and well-told story.
Thank you.
Have you gotten any reaction from your former bandmates about it?
You know, yes. I told Robert was like the first person that I gave it to read, you know, probably in May of 2016, and I said, you know, I haven't read this. Is there anything you particularly disturbed by? You know, I don't think you would be, but if there's anything you're particularly disturbed by, ask me. You know, ask me. Maybe I'll change it. You know, so and then I got an email. He said, well, I'm really happy that you've done something like this, written something and that. But I had been on the road for about a year, and I got this email one night that said, oh, there's this thing in here. Why did you say that? And why did you say this? And I looked through this whole long email, and I thought, oh, you know what? None of those things that he was thinking about are actually in the book. They're all from reviews, or, you know, like very garbled kind of things that have been mismatched. So I had to sort of say, no, that's not actually in the book. You know, this is what's in the book. You know, everybody else has been pretty good, more or less. I mean, you know, the thing is, and Randy will tell you this, you can't be too, if you're going to write your story, it has to be your story. It can't be your story, the version that everybody else has, you know, sanctified or whatever. And also, you know, my book was never going to be about dishing the dirt, or, you know, I know where all the bodies are buried. I do, but I'm not, you know, that's not the point of writing it. The point of writing it was to just describe what had happened to me, and mainly for myself, before I forget it, you know, because it comes along. The good thing is, though, it's exactly the point in your life to write it when you've been away from things like that from a long time, you know, because I didn't really start to do it until I was like 50. I started to think about it, and you know, you have much better perspective on it at that point, because when things are very fresh in your memory, you remember them with all your angst and all the problems that came with it. And, you know, after 25 years had passed, whatever, you know, your mind's clearer, and you can see it in the right perspective. So, you know, I'm sure, like Randy, I've caught the writing bug, you know, so I'm hard at work on the kind of follow-up right now. But it's been something that's been instrumental in a whole sort of creative renaissance for me. You know, I started writing a lot of music again, and started doing all kinds of things. And like Martin, nobody's as busy as Martin, because he does a million things, you know, all the time. But it's
very true.
It's like it's become a labour that loved me back, a labour of love that loved me back. You know, so it's been a wonderful experience.
Well, a curious question tailing off of that, as an artist, yeah, and having obviously had to dive back over so many years to deliver this book, now that it's out, now that it's been received, now that it's out in the world, the reception, I mean, your experience of having done it, is it similar or fundamentally different from that sense of relief and satisfaction that you get after completing an album?
Actually, it's very similar. It's similar in the way that we used to make music. We used to make albums, you know, like you would make an album, spend all this time recording it on tape, and then 6 months to a year later, it would surface, you know, it would suddenly be printed up and pressed now. Now, you know, you make something today, you can put it out today, you know. So book publishing, very similar, you know, to the old style of doing things. You know, you finish the book, then it has to be proofread, then you have to do all the, you know, copy editing, and then eventually they go, yeah, okay, well, it's going to be out in a year's time. So by the time it go out to the public, you haven't forgotten about it, but you've processed it so much that you're not kind of done with it, but you're probably on to a different frame of mind. And the thing I always used to like about making actual records was that when you actually went to go on tour to promote the record, you know, 6 months after you'd made it and finished it, you get that feeling of joy all again, you know, from the music. And it's the same with the book. You know, I had almost forgotten that I'd written it, and then I went out on the first kind of leg of the book tour around America, actually, I think it was most of it. And then I went to France and England, and it was just wonderful, you know, to have that kind of relive it again a little bit, you know, every time.
Excellent. Oh, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Martin?
It's like, I'm sorry. It's
Go on.
going through a similar thing, Lol. I'm using this time to revision my PIL book, and it feels like I'm patting a dog on the head. These memories from 40 years ago, sharing them with people. It feels like I'm patting a dog on the head. It's this familiar. It's kind of a really comforting thing, you know. And I love that there's no dirt dishing. There's no room for that.
Well, yeah, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, people are people. They're going to be the way that they are. It's your experiences. You lived your life, you know, and that's what you have the right and also the ability to put out. So, you know, seems to be it's always drummers as well. Always drummers that write the good books, you know.
And Randy. But Randy's a drummer. He drummed all the way through the Pigface set. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. He's an honorary drummer. Yeah.
A budget drummer. My interesting thing with the writing process, Lol, is my life provided the story, right? It was already in place, but the theme of my book was personal accountability. My life's the story of me getting arrested and my alcoholism and all that stuff was just the vehicle I used to convey that theme.
Right.
And did you have a unifying sort of theme that became apparent to you as you wrote the book?
Yeah. You know, actually, the whole thing in the end was kind of like Pilgrim's Progress. You know, you have to, you know, you have to go to the seventh circle of hell, but come out of it with some knowledge, as opposed to coming out of it with bitterness and self-serving stuff. Right. You know, so it's about redemption, of course. You know,
the hero's journey. Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, except you don't want to make yourself the hero all the time of every story. So
no,
because that gets old pretty quick, you know.
Sure.
I mean, we have a president that does that, and you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a whisper question. Can you hear me? I don't want to be too loud.
Yeah.
How did you actually go about writing? Did you set down time? Because I want to write a book this year. That's my big project. Did you set down time every day at the same time, or did you just kind of like go? I'm curious about the actual process of writing a book like that.
Right. Good. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I did. I had a process, and the only way I could do it was I said to myself, okay, I give myself 1 year. And that's all I'm going to do is write the book. I mean, I did other things, but I said, all I'm going to do is write the book. A friend of mine said, some people have an office near here. You know, they're looking for somebody else to share their office space with them. Just there's two guys that do, I don't know, kind of web projects and things. And I think you'd like it. And it's only about a mile from where I live. So I thought, okay, that's a really good idea, because, you know, you could do it at home. You could do it all at home. But if you do it at home, you know, you sit there, you type, and then all of a sudden you go, time for lunch. That needs fixed over there. So I made it so I had to go to a place to go to work every day. And I'd read a lot of different things, actually some books that Ben Schaefer told me about, you know, like Stephen King's book on writing. And he said, well, you know, I have a place that I write in, and nobody gets to read anything until the first draft's finished. So I just went in for a year to my office, 4 or 5 hours a day, and just wrote. And some days, you know, you get 200 words and it's horrible. And some days you get 2,000 and you don't want to stop. But then I did the other thing that Hemingway always said, you know, never finish your story every day. You know, always leave a little bit there to come back to the next day. And if you do that consistently, I did it like, you know, 5 days a week for a year. At the end of the year, you've got a book, you know. And for me, it was completely a learning process, because although, you know, I loved books and read it, I've never written anything longer than about 10,000 words ever. You know, maybe I wrote a magazine article or something, but writing a book is a whole different kettle of fish. And, you know, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. At one point I had, in this office, I had this big chart that went all the way around the walls, and I was marking off the timelines of things. And then I got talking to a friend of mine who was a novelist. And I said, well, how do you go about writing? He said, well, I put all of what I think are good chapter titles on cards, and I put them out on the table in front of me, and then I just mingle them all around till I think I've got some kind of story that goes through all of them, and then just got to fill in the gaps between the chapter titles. And it's kind of like that. I mean, the first thing I wrote for the whole book wasn't at the beginning. I didn't start that, sit down and just write, you know, okay, in the beginning, this is what happened. I actually started when I got back together with The Cure in 2011 at the Sydney Opera House, and I wrote all about that. And my agent said to me, oh, well, you know, you should go and see this person. I won't name her. She's not a writer. I know that Ben knows her for sure, and Randy knows her, but he said, you should go and take your work to this writer and, you know, see how you're going, how you're doing. And she doesn't live very far from me. So I went round to see her. She's a little older than me. And I was very nervous, you know, because it was the first thing I'd written completely seriously, and I was very invested in it. It's kind of like putting your baby in front of somebody and saying, please, you know, tell me what's good about this or bad, you know. And I gave it to her, and she read it all, and she got through it. And at the end, she turned around to me and she said, you are a writer. You're a writer. Just, you know, and handed it back to me. And I was just like, oh, okay, you know. And then I could kind of go on. I needed some kind of validation, you know, just to know that I was doing the right thing. But yeah, absolutely. The process was 1 year sitting down and writing every day.
Well, that's pretty useful for me to hear too, Lol. Thank you.
When I was writing my book, my friend Kevin is a best-selling author. He wrote a book called The Yellow Birds, which was made into a movie. And he was the guy I first showed my writing to, because he's like a National Book Award finalist. And he's like, I showed him some of the chapters, and he was like, you're a writer. And he said, the most important thing to remember is that when we sit down at the blank page, we engage with something true. As long as you engage with something true, you make the blank page your bitch. Now go finish the book.
Right.
That wasn't quite what it was Pamela DeBar's.
Oh yeah.
And she didn't actually say that to me. She didn't say anything about making anything my bitch, but she said, yeah, you know, it's got to be truthful. And that was the thing that stopped me at the beginning, because I had to be aware that if I'm going to write it, it has to be 100% true. It has to be the truth. Because if it isn't, people that read it very soon will understand that it's not true. You know, that you can't really fool the reader. You know, you can kind of skirt around things, but you can't really fool them. And so I thought, okay, am I prepared to put everything out there? Not, you know, not my war wounds, so to speak, but am I prepared to be just me and be vulnerable? And once I'd made that decision, it was easy, you know.
I'll end the self-serving questions with one that sort of ties us into the group questions here, and the one that a lot of us want to know. Are we going to see any new material from Lemonhurst?
Yes, we are, but probably not this year. I've been working on something this year, which has to be very secret, but it will see the light of day, and I'm very, very excited. So there is some new music coming for sure. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, and with your blessing, we'll get into some of the group questions here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So the questions, we've kind of put them in different groups.
Okay.
The first bit were people who wanted to know about your early Cure days. So a woman in Argentina named Nancy asks if you have any memories from your visit there in 1987.
Well, yes, and that's actually probably a whole chapter in the book, because we had a couple of riots. I mean, we went just after General Galtieri had been deposed and stuff. So it was pretty. It's funny because when I just went to South America before Christmas, and the same thing was happening again. You know, we were supposed to go to Bolivia, and I got a phone call from Bolivia, said, don't come right now because they're not letting people out of the airport. You know, you won't be able to actually get into the country. So, and then we got to Chile, and they just had all these riots in Chile as well. So, you know, it's very volatile down there. But in Argentina, the first time we went, it was we probably the first band from you know, England or the US that had been there after all of that trouble had erupted. And a lot of people came to see us, and it was really kind of a good show. But the trouble is if you repress people for so long, you know, they have all this enthusiastic energy, I think is probably the best way to describe it. So things got out of hand, and there was a riot, and you know, things happened very. Yeah, there was a few deaths and stuff, which are, you know, pretty bad, obviously. But you know, people would say, oh well, you know, wondered if the band was had something, you know, didn't want to be coming back to Argentina, and that was never the way. That was never what we thought. We understood what the mood was, and it wasn't directed towards us, you know, it was directed towards the situation they've been living in. And so when I went back this last time after Christmas, before Christmas time, sorry, it was very nice to go back and talk to people, and some people had been at those concerts, you know, like 1987, so that was kind of amazing, you know. So no, it was good. It was good.
All right, there's another one here. It says, on 17 Seconds, Faith, and especially Pornography, your playing became more and more tribal, a bit like Joy Division, Bauhaus, or the Banshees. Was it on purpose?
I wouldn't say it was on purpose, but I say there is a purpose behind it, if that makes sense. It's like that, you know, two of those bands that you named, like the Banshees and Bauhaus, I have great admiration for, particularly for the drummers in those bands, right? So obviously, and Joy Division, of course, Stephen Morrison is a great drummer. But you know, I think we came from, you know, we didn't come from the same areas, but we came from the same era musically, and the same influences to a greater or lesser extent. You know, they permeated into our thoughts. So we're bound to play, you know, some variations that are similar, but not completely the same.
Okay. And a fan named Rick would like to know what led rototoms specifically for your kids.
A lot of the things that we did in the Cure were, you know, a lot of people when they start bands, they you know, maybe they're young, sort of 13, 14, and they hear different bands, they get into music, and then they start going, okay, we'll form a band. Well, you know, what was our influence? Okay, I want to play drums like this guy, or I want to play guitar like this band. But for the Cure, we had a different modus operandi. We said, what don't we like? You know, what don't we like, and what are we not going to play? Well, we're not going to do long guitar solos. You know, we had to calm Pearl down a bit because he was really good at that kind of stuff. And you know, for me, I had started playing drums as a way to express myself. You know, if we'd been able to be furniture movers and express ourselves, I would have done that. But it was, you know, to me, it was the expression that was important. So I looked at a lot of things that I'd seen people play, different kind of drums. And at the time, a lot of people played these things called concert toms, which were like big and deep with only one head. And they were very 1970s. And suddenly one day I saw these rototoms and I thought, they look completely different. Most people would just use them as additions to their kit. But I decided, okay, I'm going to make my whole kit out of it. And it looked a lot different. And also, you know, from a vanity point of view, you know, if you're the drummer, you get stuck behind this whole list of things, you know, and you have to kind of look over the top. But the good thing about rototoms, they're so small and spindly, is that everybody could see what I was wearing. You know, I'm by far the most sartorial member of the Cure, so, you know, it was good to do that. You know, like Charlie Watts. Charlie Watts is the most sartorial in the Rolling Stones, you know, so I was like, okay, he just played behind a small kit, looked very dapper, so I thought, okay, I'm going to make sure people can see what I'm wearing, you know.
Excellent. Carlo wants to know, which of the Cure's albums represents what you always wanted to do as an artist?
You know, this question comes up again and again, so I have some different answers. They're all true. Pornography, for me, was the best version of the three-piece band because, you know, by the time we got there, you know, if you're in a three-piece band, as I'm sure Randy and Martin will tell you, if you can't make any mistakes, because if there's only three of you and one of you messes up, everybody notices. Like, as soon as you start adding, you know, an extra guitarist, an extra person, that, you know, you can mess up a little bit now and again, and nobody's really going to notice. You know, just the aficionados might see things, but three-piece band, you've got to be so tight and precise. And for me, the band that made Pornography was that band. You know, Simon, Robert, we had locked in. You know, we didn't need to talk to each other about what we were going to play. We just felt it every time, and we knew. And that's the other thing that makes a band. You know, you can say, okay, I'm going to make this band. I'm going to get the best guitarist, the best drummer, the best bass player, best singer. We're going to make the best band. And it doesn't work like that. It works. There's some kind of, I think Joe Strummer in The Clash said it best. He said, you know, you can't mess with the chemistry. You know, when they had all the trouble with Topper and his problems, you know, they should have actually just looked after Topper, because Topper that was the chemistry right there. You know, he was like so, you know, absolutely vital to the way that the Clash sounded and who they were. And but you know, you learn those lessons gradually as you go on. But for me, the band that made Pornography was the best band. And then the next band, which was, you know, a bigger version with Boris and Pearl, with Kiss Me, that was like a great album to make, you know, and had a lot of joy of life in it, you know.
Excellent. Let's see. All right. David asks, what's your favorite Cure record post disintegration?
You know, I've got to be honest, I'm not sure that I've listened to them enough to know, because, you know, for me, well, you know, it's not me just saying it. Well, it is me just saying it, but you know, unless, for me, the Cure was like, you know, because I started from the very beginning for a good portion of my life, and even now, you know, it's part of my soul. So things that I was not there for, I don't really have an opinion about, because every Cure album, if you say the name of it, if I was there, even if I was only there in body, you know, if my mind had gone somewhere else, but if I was there, it's like a diary. Each of those records is like a diary to me. So I remember what happened. I remember how it came about. I remembered what we were talking about. And so albums after that, I don't really, you know, I have individual tracks from time to time that I hear and I think, oh, yeah, that's good. But some things I listen to and I think, yeah, if I was there, I would have done this. And so, you know, it's the sort of thing I can't really say I listen to it that much, you know, I'm being honest.
Switching gears a bit, question-wise, we've got one from Luca, who's saying, in Cured, your book, you said you don't like the UK as a place to live. How do you think Crawley and London had a part in the earlier Cure?
Yeah, it's very funny. Like, about sometime last year, the local paper in Crawley, which is a suburb of London, you know, to the south, right? My elder brother still lives there, and he sent me a copy of the local paper, and they had, last year was like the 40th anniversary of the Cure, so they had a museum, and they put a Cure exhibition in it, and they, you know, they asked me for a few things. I had a few things for them, whatever, and you know, that went on. And then on the day it opened, the local paper had this headline, and it quoted from my book, and it said, "He hates us, he hates the town, but we still love him." You know, I don't hate them. I don't hate them. It's just, you know, without that place, we wouldn't have wanted to escape and get out. You know, because it was. This tells you just like how it is as a place. A few years ago, I went back to England and I visited Michael Dempsey, first Cure bass player. We're still very good friends. And Michael said, "Oh, you know, I'll pick you up from the airport," because he lives not that far away. And he said, "On the way back, do you want to go and see the old places that we used to play?" And I went, "Okay." So we drove around. We stopped at the Rocket, which was like the first pub we ever played. And he said, "I'm going to wait in the car. You and Cindy, my wife, if you want to go in and just have a look, you know." And I thought, that's strange. Why doesn't he want to come in? And I went in, you know, and I was looking about. It was Sunday night, and there was about 3 people in there. You know, without making too much of it, the only reason that pub ever has anybody going there now is because we played there 40 years ago. You know, they have nothing inside. There are no pictures of us. They have nothing. They have not made anything about it, and they don't care, and they never will, you know. And so I'm very, you know, I have a friend now, because like, as you get older, your friends get into different positions of authority. So I have a friend that's on the council there now that I grew up with, and he said to me, "Oh, I'm going to, you know, petition the council to put up, you know, some kind of plaque there so that people will know." It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. They don't care, you know. So in that way, it was great to get away. I mean, saying that, the town next to it, which is where I actually grew up, in Simon as well, they did put a little plaque up on the subway that we was like the inspiration for the Subway song on the first album. They put a little plaque up there, and you know, so that was kind of good. My mother would have liked that if she was still alive. She would have gone and taken her picture next to it, you know. But yeah, other than that, you know, the fact it was so sort of apathetic and nobody really wanted to change that, and I think it's still kind of the same. So, you know, I think in that way, the fact it was so bad is what propelled us outwards, you know. So thanks, Crawley.
And a question came in from a person named Joe. How do you describe the feeling that you get knowing that there are fans who actually idolize you?
You know, I guess I feel humbled and flattered at the same time that anybody would think that. Sometimes it's a little scary. You know, I did book event. Actually, I think it was in Mexico City, and when I turned up, you know, the whole place is full, and they have security guards for me for a book event. You know, armed security guards, guys with big guns standing next to me as I'm doing things. And the people in the bookstore said it's the first time we've ever had armed security for a book signing. And so that side of it can be a bit freaky, because, you know, I want to get close to people and I want to talk to them and I want to do things with them. But sometimes, you know, I always think of, I don't put myself in the same boat at all, but I always think of, like, you know, Mark Chapman and John Lennon. There are some people out there who, whatever is going on is not quite what should be going on. Let's put it that way. And so that's the bad side of it. But everything else is wonderful, of course. You know, it's nice. It's flattering, of course. You know, and humbling. You know.
Do you have any advice for young, inexperienced musicians who are just starting out?
All Cure fans are called Molly, by the way. Yeah, no. Yeah. Any advice? I'm gonna resist the temptation to be facetious. I really don't want to be. You know, my son is a young musician. You know, he's 28 and he has a band, and it's a lot harder now in some ways, I think, because of the internet. You know, there's so much stuff that you can see. You can just dial on, get on your phone. You've got stuff. When I first started playing in the late 70s, when I first came to America, we could tour around the whole of America playing small clubs, colleges, anywhere. We could do it 5-6 nights a week for months on end, and we could support ourselves. And it was it was relatively easy. You know, there came a point where both me and Michael, Robert didn't have to because Robert never had a job, but me and Michael just said, okay, next week we'll stop working and we're going to go full time as professional musicians. And you could kind of do it, you know, and you could support yourself enough to be able to do it. Now I think it's almost impossible, you know. It's like, unless you've got a great, you know, benefactor behind you, or you can actually get it the wherewithal to manufacture a lot of merchandise and things like that. It's very hard, I think, for new bands to make it in that kind of traditional way, really, you know. So I think the best advice I can give is just find what is your difference and make that your selling point, because that's how you're going to be able to live, you know.